I welcome to anyone who may be listening, if anyone is listening out there. This is Audio Boy SE, and I am your host, No One. What's Audio Boy SE, if you may ask? Well, just consider it an audio blog where I can be more of myself and express myself. Actually, let's cut to the chase and get to the topic for today. So let's talk about the anime that helped forge my youth. The anime I mentioned in the last Audio Boy SC were Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Ronin Warriors, and Sailor Moon. Those were the ones that really helped forge me when I was a really small child. Now, I want to start talking about the ones good and bad, because I realized during this period there were a lot of bad ones that helped forge more my middle school, high school, and early college years. So during this time, I was watching still Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball Z was slowly coming up to the forefront. But of course, this was before the Toonami days, so we had to wait a very long time to get past Goku fighting, or even about to fight, Jace and Berter. Oh my, it was very, very painful wait. But we'll get to that later. Now, during this time, I still watch the traditional Japanese animations. And for you people out there that feel that you're being made fun of for what you watch, oh man, you guys do not understand how much I was made fun of. I was made fun of a lot. You gotta remember, small, pubescent boy that's watching magical girls have magical battles and magical things, and they're dressed in their pretty princess stuff. The other boys weren't very kind to it because I should be watching sports, darker action films, and, well, porn. Because unless I'm watching women have sex with each other, I am not a straight male in their eyes. And yeah, that was not cool. Also, they saw cartoons as, well, little kid stuff and should stay little kid stuff. And there's nothing cool or mature or anything about cartoons. Even though, sadly, from what I see, that the cartoons that we watch were, well, more mature than a lot of the adult films. Now I think about it, even today, it's still a thing. But that will be another tangent for another Audio Boy. I want to talk about the stuff that I grew up and what led me to the more stuff of anime that sadly still has a special place in my heart. Now, to combat these people that were making fun of me, I decided I remembered Akira and I remember Ghost in the Shell. And I know there has to be other stuff out there to use an example as, yes, this is more mature and it's not the little Looney Tunes things out there. So I was looking around trying to see what I could find, and I found Guyver. Bio Booster Armor Guyver. When I was younger, that was a pretty cool show. But oh my Bob, it is so bad. I mean, so very bad. So I guess you consider it maybe a guilty pleasure. And I hate guilty pleasures, but we all have them. And I consider Guyver my guilty pleasure. The only reason why I guess it worked in my favor was because of the live action movies of Guyver. Oh yes, live action movies that were even worse, but it was a counterpoint. I was showing like, look how childish and silly these live action American movies are. Look how they don't take their source material seriously. Because no matter how bad the Japanese anime of Guyver was, at least it took its lore and its characters and its motivations more serious, and there was a lot more blood. And that was the one thing from anime during that time that everyone had. Lots and lots of blood. When people died, they exploded in super mega piles of blood. So much blood. I'm surprised we haven't handled the whole blood transfusion thing because goddamn. So we watched Guyver and I got the VHSs because parents aren't parenting and they don't know what we're watching or what we're purchasing. And the videotape businesses were, well, it's a buck. And like I said last audio boy, cartoons are cartoons. A side note about that, I saw like Fist of the North Star in the children's section. That's how bad it's gotten during then and still now. From what I remember from Guyver, it was a story of a young teenage boy fighting against evil robots. No, not robots, biological space weapon monsters. Some of the good things about Guyver that I can remember are how the powers are used because it was interesting. It wasn't just I have super powerful metal. It was no super powerful metal that used a sonic frequency that was able to cut through many things. And we had acid, but it wasn't acid. It was like these special types of acids. There was also some psychological play. And I personally like stories with psychological villains using psychological play of how, spoilers, it's a very old show, both versions, and the movie, how they used the main character's father and made him into one of the monsters and shows the real cruelty and how that became an arc. And that's why I feel there was actual arcs of the tale. That was kind of cool. Also, when the main character stopped being Guyver because of that moment, it gave the other chance for the other characters to shine and to do their stuff, which I felt was really cool. The other thing that I remember that was cool about Guyver, which I guess many people will disagree with, is the scene that the main character, Guyver, and his love interest are locked between the main monster. And the main monster was using her as a shield, trying to coax Guyver to being Guyver. And he used, let's just say, really horrible ways to do it. My stepfather and I would have a talk, still even to this day, about it, saying that that's really bad. Because remember, cartoons are cartoons and only cartoons and nothing but cartoons. So they should only be for kids and only for kids, not realizing what the examples are. So we were talking about like when a horrible monster is being seen, a kid can look away. When what the monster did was rip off all the clothes trying to coax the hero, a kid would look there because, oh my God, there's boobs and naked chick. Not realizing that now that I still think about not a very good way of doing things, still was a way to show that white noble heroism thing. Yeah, I agree there's a lot of misogyny into it and I've seen it still, but we were still raised that men should protect women. Now it's actually kind of nice that we're more equals, but there's still always going to be, for at least this generation, that men should protect women, and seeing that is not cool, and we have to stop it because we have the strength and the power to stop it. And that's what that type of old world thinking worked with Guyver. It's kind of like a more messed up version of the male white knight to protect the female. Luckily, stories would become more different when we were older, but during this time, men were the stereotypical men and women were the stereotypical women. And I think Guyver had that as the prime example. So I never looked away, wasn't sexually attracted, wasn't aroused because that would be sick. And I think it was very effective to how the character is. Sadly, I know the manga is still going on, but I feel, well, don't quote me, it's been years. And I feel that the story should have had a better conclusion in the anime, because I haven't watched the new one. I seen a little bit of the Animerica review, which I'm not a fan of Animerica at all. Back to the point. All I know is the Guyver when I watched it was younger, didn't have an ending, and it really did kind of suck. But yeah, watch Guyver when I was younger, still not a messed up serial killer. Take that, parents of my period. Let's go on to other shows. During the time of this weird period of really bad shows, we only could get VHSs. It didn't get too closer to mainstream. Yes, I know The Cure and the Ghost in the Shell materials with a little bit of Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon was paving that way. And even before then, you could say Robotech. Oh man, I wish I really finished all of Robotech. But it didn't really start. And people would be talking about, yes, Toonami really did it. Yeah. Toonami is where it started. But there was another channel a long time ago that started and actually introduced more of the adult stuff. And it was the Sci-Fi Channel that did it. Now, if I remember, I believe it was called Anime Saturday. That was interesting because right around that time, I had cable. We saw the Sci-Fi Channel Anime Saturday, which had a phrase that came from it. This is no swim in the kiddie pool. Hence, I feel it was a little hint when Adult Swim became Adult Swim because of that phrase. The anime introduced in this Saturday block was also Guyver Bad. Maybe even worse than Guyver Bad. Just look at all of Anime Abandon. Yes, I know I need to stop talking about all of the Anime Bennett stuff. Which I will, but I need to make the point. Everything that Bennett has reviewed in his anime review show was introduced here. It was a different anime series of just a couple of episodes or an anime movie that we could watch. I even remember watching the Yu Yu Hakusho movie there, and which led me to Yu Yu Hakusho when it became on Toonami. This Anime Saturday was used more as a promotional material to buy the VHSs and other stuff that we could watch. You can consider them more as little appetizers to prepare you for the main meal to entice you to buy the main meal. Sadly, though, they were really bad series. I remember, it essentially was just all the stuff that Anime Abandon reviewed. It did coax me to watching a couple interesting stuff that I can remember. Examples can be Slayers, which really angered me because Slayers, I was liking that world. And I was liking the whole idea of the blind sorcerer and the dark lord. And I thought, okay, this is kind of cool. Then the next VHS tape was them doing patty cake, and pacifist punch. Oh my god, how stupid that is. Pacifist punch. The only thing that became cool from it was during my college years, I had a friend that also watched Slayers. And we were talking about how could pacifist punch work, and his only example was that a person kept getting poked and made fun of because they can't punch, and all those 10 years of regression were become one massive punch. We even did an audio record of it one day in G Gundam style. I love the community sometimes, but whatever. And it led me to Burn Up, which sadly led me to Burn Up W, which sadly led up to rewatching Guyver, which led me up to watching Ninja Scroll. Oh yeah, let's talk about Ninja Scroll. This is the best example of how anime became during that period. Ninja Scroll's not good. I mean, story-wise and as a form of meaningful art. What Ninja Scroll is good for, that is a great popcorn flick in anime. Because it had all the blood, it had all the guts, it had awesome fighting, great art design, and interesting character powers. But when you really think about it, no, it's not good in that sense. So Ninja Scroll is another one of my guilty pleasures that sometimes I watch. My mom's gotten more in tune of what these shows are and these movies are, so I can't show it to my little brother. My mom let me watch Ghost in the Shell because she knows the significance. But yeah, she knows about Ninja Scroll and the snake vagina. No. So I have to wait till he's older because that is a wonderful, awesome popcorn flick. Or maybe I can wait when she's not listening, take him to my place, and we. No. I must not be evil. Yet. So, Ninja Scroll had this really cool samurai dynamic, and it was the anime creators that were influenced by old samurai films put into this. And the only scene that I remember that was really, really, really cool in a weird aspect that no one else would see was the scene that we're fighting this blind swordsman, like the Zaoichi, and he was kicking their butt and using that sight is a weakness. But sadly, when he was doing an attack and dodging all these awesome attacks, he got killed by an attack that a person that could see would avoid. So it had little clever things like that. But again, it's a really, really bad movie. Just a really good bad movie. Which makes me sad because I watched Ninja Resurrection because of Ninja Scroll. And it's kind of funny that was the first title card I worked on. Because goddamn, I hated that so much. I was so disappointed. Now, knowing the cultural significance of it, it's not as bad as I think it is, but I really hated all that stuff. Because, no. And the reason why I mentioned no was another Japanese animation which I also found very bad watching at a younger age was Angel Sanctuary. I hate Angel Sanctuary with a burning passion because I know it's trying to be deeper than what it is. And I really hate saying pretentious because a lot of people go, oh, you're so pretentious, as if it was a bad thing. But the problem is it shouldn't be a really bad thing because that means at least you're trying to say or do something and you're trying to grow yourself as a human being. You just failed at it. But that's okay because you'll get better and better. Now for Angel Sanctuary, no, it was pretentious and it played against a lot of the religion and it didn't do a good job at it because it was like more about reassurance instead of actually talking about certain questions during that time, which eventually I may talk about. But let's just say Angel Sanctuary, if I remember correctly, and the Evangelion fans with the whole symbolism is what put me off to Evangelion, which is sad because later on when I watched Evangelion as an adult, it was actually a very interesting story. Shinji is a little whiny brat. Yes, he is. But he grew as a human being until the movies. So during that time, anime was really turned off until a special thing came. And that special thing was Toonami. Remember, Dragon Ball Z was, like I said, in an infinite loop. I didn't know about Toonami was coming in the forefront until after I made a vacation to New York and we saw the DBZ tapes. And I was like, what? Stuff's happening? What? Things continue? What? I don't have to go to Mexico to see what's going on? Okay. What? It's going to be aired on TV? Awesome. Now that I think about it, I like Dragon Ball more. But Z still has a special place in my heart. And Toonami is what really brought it. And a lot of people, when they think about when anime was introduced to them, was during the first run of Toonami and the second run of Toonami. To me, the second run of Toonami was way more special. But we'll get to that. And oh my god, this vlog is taking forever. I am very, very sorry, guys. I know you're gonna have to do this in multi-parts. I'm sorry, but we need to talk. It's important. That's when people were like, okay, this is kind of cool. Because they were just realizing cartoons aren't just cartoons. And I guess they were getting more meat. And it wasn't just a little tidbits or little bites like the Sci-Fi Channel. The Sci-Fi Channel was more of a way to coax you into buying the VHSs. And VHSs were very expensive back then. So you felt kind of ripped off. Now what Toonami did was, it was bringing back a lot of the other shows. So Sailor Moon was brought back. And I think during the second run, they started showing S and they started showing Super S. The only way before I can get those parts was to go to Chinatown Mall. So it felt really great that the things that I was made fun of as a child is now being brought and being consumed by the average audience. And people were buying into it. Like, it was during my sophomore and junior year in high school. Now, my freshman year was actually kind of interesting because we were fighting anime fans and it was still a secret cult then. Very, very, very secret. I remember collecting VHSs and sharing them with other friends and showing each other. I remember a lot of them liking Vampire Hunter D. I wasn't a fan of it until the second movie. I still enjoyed the action and the aspects, but again, the story didn't feel complete until the second movie. Whatever, we're back. So we were surprised that, what? Okay, we're not dorks anymore. We're not that. We are the first people. And even though no matter how bad Dragon Ball Z is, no matter how long the goddamn transformations are, no matter how the 5 minutes become 30-some episodes because Frieza is a time bender, no matter all that, it will still have a special place in my heart because of that introduction. And it was kind of like a gateway anime. Speaking of a gateway anime, which made me very happy, I spoke with a couple of the voice actresses. I don't know their names off the top of my head, but they are the new Sailor Uranus and the new Sailor Neptune. And the new Sailor Neptune saying that Sailor Moon had a very special place in her heart was because it was her gateway anime. And without watching Sailor Moon, she wouldn't be the voice actress today. And it was really cool to watch her be so giddy that she has become Sailor Neptune, because to her, that's a character she really looked up to, and now she is that character. Heck yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about. No matter how many problems these shows had, they were still touching lives and made careers. Talking about flawed shows, I remember Gundam Wing. I think it came around my senior year. And of course, it was just to introduce us to get the models. Gundam Wing wasn't the best, but I will admit it got Gundam back and they were showing Gundam in all of its wonderful glory. We'll talk about that in a bit. And oh my god, this video is going on forever. I'm so sorry. So let's keep at it. Now we were getting shows that were intended for younger people, but with a little bit more meat. So Toonami went back and forth, and I remember watching Yu Yu Hakusho. But what made me really excited, then when things really changed, was Adult Swim. Because Toonami ran its course, to let you know, like it said, it ran its course a little bit the first time, and it did come back the second time, and it was glorious. Glorious. So there was a little dry period. And during that dry period, Adult Swim came up and filled its shoes. I remember it was during my college time. I was having a lot of problems. And like I said, Angel Sanctuary and all these crappy things weren't feeling that scratch. And anime was going into this weird slub. The first episode of Cowboy Bebop I saw was the Alien episode. I forgot what it was called. But it was the episode they were obviously mimicking Alien. And I was like, okay. I don't know what's going on here. But let's keep going. I like the characters and a little bit of the world, but mostly the characters are what really sold Cowboy Bebop and Steve Bloom. Oh man, I met Steve Bloom 3 days ago. Wonderful guy. Wonderful, wonderful guy. And I saw Adult Swim. Now the problem was it was mostly the home movie stuff, and I will admit, home movies and Brendan Smalls was great. But there was just something interesting about Cowboy Bebop. It was adult, but still lighthearted. It wasn't bloody. And it kind of sold me on Westerns. Because I remember watching as a kid, I wasn't really a huge fan of Westerns. Because, my family. We'll talk about that stuff in another Audio Boy. But it sold me on that. And I watched the whole thing through and through. And it was tight. And then people were like, hey, let's do the weekend stuff. And that's when we were introduced to more of the Inuyashas. And yes, Inuyasha was horrible, but still intriguing. And then all the other shows. And I remember like Toonami and Adult Swim would have this interesting little block thing when it's coming back. And so, oh yes. And we were like watching Yu Hakusho. It's like, oh, I remember watching Yu Hakusho on the Sci-Fi Channel. And running that. Okay, let's do that. And I always remember watching, like, things were coming into a second renaissance. And that's when most people that I notice when they talk about Toonami and Adult Swim is when they talk about this, period. This is the time. I remember watching it back in the old days in high school when Dragon Ball Z was outside of that saga. Then they started introducing things like A Star, which is also a wonderful little space western. And then interesting shows came out. Like Cowboy Bebop is a very cool and maybe what people considered one of the top 5 usually of shows. But they forgot about things like Furikuri. I was in my college years, I think, during Furikuri. It made me sad there were only 6 episodes, but that's what made it work. And I'll get back to the point of the whole young protagonist, and this is a great example of where the character needs to be a young protagonist, because it is a coming age story that uses the mecha jokes and the boob jokes and all these examples. And Nalta is very pretentious, very, very, very pretentious, but you could really relate to him, because I feel a lot of the older anime fans, which I could be wrong, were going through that with their art and going through that through growing up. You felt that everything around you was consuming you and eating you and killing you, and you want to venture forth, but no one will let you venture forth because society needs you to be there. And one of the reasons why I feel it also worked was it had very small little moments, overshadowed by the giant robots and all these jokes. But it was a very small moments. And I could talk about 2 because, yes, oh my God, this video is going on forever. And me saying it is making it go on even longer. There was 2 moments. One was, I remember, like, Haruko was eating noodles and they were horrible tasting. Horrible, horrible tasting. And Naoto saying, well, you have to eat the good ones. You can't eat the bad ones. And you're saying, well, no, actually eating the good ones is actually kind of fun sometimes. It was interesting because it was just a small little moment, a small little phrase, and I thought, yeah, you need to go out and try new things. I know a lot of people say it's just about him and his sexual awakening, but I feel it's not just about the sexual awakening. I felt is him slowly maturing, and moments like you need to swing the bat is more in tune to that than to, oh my God, I need to do this as an adult and have sex. We can say that's a part of it, but I feel there's way more to it than that. And the other moment is, and this is why I agree that we need young protagonists. There was the girl with the glasses. I wish I knew her name, but I'm not going to check it because I'm not going to cry like last episode. And she was the only character in that show that took Naota seriously. So I remember having a talk about that with one of my former roommates about that. He's a smart guy sometimes, and this was one of the moments that his smartness, because he hides it in goofiness, came through. And we were talking about that aspect of the show. And he said, yeah, because you noticed that even Haruko his other girlfriend, father, grandfather, everyone else, no one took him seriously. It was like, oh, you're a kid. That's kid stuff. You're doing kid stuff, and we need not to take you seriously because you're a kid and whatever. She didn't. Yeah, she was very manipulative and she had her own interests. But I felt because they were both kids, she understood what he was going through and gave him some slack. That was very cool because I don't know if it was something that was intentional, but still was a very nice nudge to people realizing that there are people out there that are going through the same things that you're going through. And there are people out there, maybe far in between, that will listen to you. And it made me feel good because I was an old school anime fan and I felt kind of alienated with the new school anime fans. Because the new school ones, we're going to talk about that in a couple of Audio Boy SEs. Back to what I was saying. There's only 2 other animes that I want to talk about this because, oh my god, this is becoming the Bible. And one was during this time, I think even a little bit before. Again, when you get older, things start fusing. And it was when I started getting DVD tapes instead of VHS tapes because DVDs are superior to VHSs. Trust me, they were. I remember being a small child watching Sailor Moon. This is one of the few nice things my mom did do was record the VHS tapes, but I will get everything crackling. Everything. DVDs were just a way better option. And it was Berserk. Berserk is a very strange series. Now, I'm not talking about strange of like the whole blood sacrifices or everything else. I'm not talking about what's going on. Now, I know the manga's still going on and he's been off the boat. Good for the fans out there. But I remember watching Berserk and the first episode being very bad. I remember having a talk with another former roommate. I was saying, after I watched the whole series, watch Berserk. And he was going, this is horrible. How could everything change 180 degrees after the first episode? And I was like, do it. Well, he thanked me. Yeah. Berserk was it was a show that used a lot of talking and exposition and a lot of blood and violence. But it mixed it in a way that I feel was crucial. Because I know, yes, Griffith is outwardly focused and Guts is inwardly focused, but there's more to it than just that. Guts is a character that lived by the moment, was the moment, everything by the moment. While Griffiths was more about planning and calculating and talking and communicating. Sadly, when his plans were messed up because of Guts, it messed him up. Because again, Guts was living in the moment. Now, both were not perfect, and that became, I think, the very moral of the whole story, which was appreciate what you may have, because one day it may be gone forever and to never return. That is what Berserk was to me. Because a very, very moment in the show that touched my heart was Guts was there, sitting on top of a hill, talking, I think to Casca? Oh my god, it's been so long. And it was saying, look at those lights down there. Each light has a passion. That person wants to be a baker. That person wants to be a farmer. And goes on and says, there is no light there for me. That was a moment that didn't really become deep until he realized the Band of the Hawk was his light. That is where he needed to be. That is where he belonged. And him just, I'm a badass and I'm only inwardly focused, not realizing that sometimes people need me or I need them, is what ruined everything. All of that whole thing may have happened, but at least in that version, Guts ruined everything. And it becomes him going back and forth, trying to bring something back. And that's why I feel the manga is, which he can never do. That is where the stories became interesting again. Like Dragon Ball Z is cool, but it's just him fighting dictatorships, science, magic. Guts changed as a character in some aspects for the better, but sadly some aspects for the worse. Trying to make anime or stories or movies that really resonated with me and like how you could do things differently like that. Even all the action and all the blood and all the guts, what really brought me and still keeping Berserk in my mind is little things and little touches like that. I really wish people will watch the old Berserk instead of the CGI one. One day I will have to watch the CGI one, but not today. And now we're going to talk about the second Toonami thing, because this is during college, and I know a lot of people are going to probably make fun of me, because during the Adult Swim stuff, there were a lot of the older Gundams. And yes, the older Gundams were very interesting. Like, I remember the one about the boy crying because of the pilot and the other type of stories. But the problem with those other Gundams was it was just about war and this goal and how war is bad. And we should know war is bad. But the one I thought that take a different approach about it was one of my favorite series. And go ahead, make fun of me. G Gundam. Ooh, speaking of which, the video's gone on for long enough. We could add more stuff, won't hurt. I spoke with the director of G Gundam yesterday and the day before. And he is a wonderful, kind man. You cannot be angry around him. That's awesome. I asked him about Tequila Gundam. He laughed and he said what Tequila Gundam was, again, he spoke in a 15-minute answer, but I'll condense it to two things. What G Gundam was supposed to be Street Fighter, but for Gundam. Because the old Gundam series was not selling and it was too philosophical, and which I felt G Gundam was very philosophical. It was just done in a different way. That's why it really stands out compared to the other Gundams. But he was talking like, we need to make it like Street Fighter so kids could get into it, which led to, well, kids can see these designs more interestingly, and we can coax them into. And what Tequila Gundam was, it was something that kids could understand and was a satire. It was made like that to make fun of how Japan saw the world and how we saw Japan. And a lot of it kind of backfired because he would go to other countries and show their Gundam. So Mexico got really pissed off, and so did America, and so did Holland. And India also got pissed off. And it kind of backfired a little bit, and hence why it has people like me asking about Tequila Gundam in a small little panel room so many years later. Oh my God, it was so awesome. You can't believe it. We were all laughing because all the Americans knew it, and he was laughing too. And we were just joking. But remember, back to my point. So what makes G Gundam interesting were phrases like a martial artist can only communicate with their fists, and the whole aspect about man and nature, and how man is killing the forest, but man is a part of nature. It's just a different form of nature. And how can you fix nature if you forgot that fact that man is a part of nature? And the certain story being told with it about it's kind of a martial artist revenge tale, and how that path of blood could lead to a very sad conclusion. Now, another reason why G Gundam has a very important thing to me was I have two younger brothers. One of my younger brothers was, I think, 8 at the time, maybe even younger. I don't remember. And this is the story I must mention before I go off into La La Land. The Void, not the movie. We were watching, and now before, give you some back history, he would only watch Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, and other color action shows. But he would not know what was going on. Not at all. Because the bright colors and the action is what led him to it, and those kid designs. Now with G Gundam though, there was the one moment I realized he grew up as a person. Oh, and I also shared the story with the director of G Gundam, and he was so happy. My little brother was sitting there, and it was the moment when the Shuffle Alliance was affected by the Dark Gundam cells, and Domon was walking down to them, going to try to save them. And the announcer, does his announcer thing like a boxer announcer, which is one of the wonderful little charms of G Gundam. And he was like, could Domon Kashu, or can Domon Kashu save his friends? My little brother stood up, being a small little boy, and screamed, yes, he can, as if to defy the announcer, and how dare the announcer not believe in Domon Kashu. I looked at him, said nothing, of course, and my thoughts like, he gets it. Not as like a pseudo level like I get it, of course, because a lot of the aspects of G Gundam I feel is like a martial artist story, kind of like Kung Fu, into more of a revenge tale, kind of like Kill Bill. but done in racist Gundams. And it worked. But him, he gets it. And what makes it interesting was because the director said what he feels what made G Gundam work was he tried to make things a little bit more simple. I disagree. I think the stories were more complicated into that philosophy. But yes, they were told in a simple way that a child could understand. So when I gave the DVDs when he was like 13, 14, he went nuts. And even though my brother and I have problems growing up, I can just simply turn on the theme song and he smiles. And that helped forge certain aspects about his personality, hopefully for the better. And for me, for G Gundam, was the characters had their moments of realization. And it was a huge cast. And the whole Master Asia and Domon thing was very touching because with me, I do not have, I guess you can say, a father. And I tried to find father figures. And sadly, my father figures also failed me. But with this, you kind of could realize, well, they're human in their own aspects and they're not pure good or pure evil. And it works. And also, I guess the moment with Saishi, he's trying to revive the Shaolin Temple, and you find out the motivation of him reviving the Shaolin Temple was he just wants his daddy back. And it could all be understood by a child. Even though I love Ghost in the Shell, and I wish that everyone watch, and sadly watch it as a child, and Akira, and all the other stories I mentioned before, it's stories like Sailor Moon, and it's stories like G Gundam, and it's stories like all the little, I guess you could say, kid stuff. You can even say maybe stuff like Lion King if you want to go into a non-anime aesthetic. Really help shape and communicate what we are. And like I said, if you take those big ideas and bump it down that even a child could understand, it really gives me some hope for the future. I'm taking enough of your time right now. So we're going to talk about other animes and hopefully it will be a shorter audio boy next week. But for now, this is No One signing out.